Good morning, somewhere. This is Dr. JJ in the driver's seat for another edition of our show. Welcome. First timers need not admit to a problem, just listen and we'll try to inform and maybe entertain. We're talking to Hunter again today. So, what's on your mind today, Hunter?
Hey, Dr. JJ. Uh, Good to see you, man. Good to see you.
Great to see you, sir.
Yeah. Dr. JJ, I want to talk about overcoming what did it powerlessness.
Hmm.
I've been uh, wrestling with this subject around powerlessness and working the steps.
Hmm.
Um, and So I just want to jump right in. I was thinking about um, the subject came to me, and as I was thinking about the story and biblical story about the children of Israel and their being in the wilderness, but having uh, been explored the promised land of Canaan, um, and they're coming back uh, and being fearful about going into the land,
These are the
feeling
scouts, right?
the
Moses sent
scouts,
out some scouts.
scouts, right, right,
They're
Tw-
supposed to scope it out. They're supposed to come back. There were 12 of them, one for each tribe.
right, right, right.
Came
There
back
you
to
go.
Moses.
You got the story.
Yeah.
Numbers 13, uh, and um, and only two of them, Joshua and Caleb, had a positive report. But the significant thing I wanted to talk about was that the others, and I actually I'll read it. It
Sure.
says in Numbers uh, chapter 13 at the end. Uh, it says I'm in the wrong chapter. Let me go over here. There we go. It says uh, I'll read it. This is Numbers
Please.
starting at verse 30. Um, it says, Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses and said, We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites, a bad report about the land they had explored. They said, The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size, like giants. We saw the Nephilim. They were the descendants of Anak, come from Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. So we talk about powerlessness.
Mm.
They certainly are indicative of that. But most importantly, it says that they define themselves by how they thought they appeared in the eyes of others.
Right.
And so as I was sharing with you in prior conversation, I feel personally um, that that's something I, as a black man in America,
Mhm.
know intimately, and uh, think that the community, which I'm a part of, uh, is uh, plagued with the same kind of sense of powerlessness. And
Mhm.
so the question I bring to Dr. JJ is, um, where in the steps uh, is there, you know, a a response to this kind of powerlessness,
Mhm.
this feeling of powerlessness? Because again, it's one thing um, to come to some peace and about our past, but this has to do with uh, powerlessness in the present and even um, that which is debilitating related to the future. So
Mhm.
let me
Mhm.
pause there and let you respond back to me.
Well, as I think about this, there are a couple of thoughts I have in mind. The steps, as I ponder the steps, um, more and more, and I've now been doing it for uh, 16 years, as it turns out. I find greater and greater depth. There are more levels in which I can analyze and consider the steps and the transformational effect they can have on our lives. So, for example, we talk about powerlessness explicitly in step one, and you've referred to it. Yeah,
Mhm.
we've identified the fact that we're powerless, but we focus on that powerlessness in one specific part of our lives. Okay. And that is our addiction, whatever it is, whichever one it is.
Mm.
And we can have multiple addictions, we can attack it multiple ways, but in each case, the focus of of recognizing our powerlessness is not that we're powerless in all things, it's that we're powerless in these things, our addiction and the consequences of our addiction. Okay. So I say that in preparation to answer your question,
Okay.
because as we move through the next steps, the next two steps, 2 and 3, are the power of something greater than ourselves that could actually help us, right? The higher power concept of 2 and 3, and making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God, higher power, I call it. So that's the setup. So we understand a source of power, a one source of power somewhere helping. But then we turn and we do our work. We have work to do. We need to take stock of ourselves, top to bottom, fearless moral inventory. Step 4. Well, this is where we begin. We start with where we are because things are in shambles. We've admitted powerless. Step 1, there's something out there that can help. Supposed to do well. The fact is, if we were totally powerless over everything, step 4 would be totally useless. If we had no power at all, we could not do step 4. Now, we do step 4 with the help of higher power, with of a sponsor, but we are doing step 4. That's our journey. That's our work, our dog food that we are eating. Okay. And and 4 is done by each individual to the extent the individual can do it. I suggest that part of step 4, for example, in resentments inventory, is resent the fact that others see me this way.
Mm.
Uh, okay, that's resentment in my mind.
Mm.
It can be a fear as well. It could appear on more than one of the 4 inventories that we're doing. Okay, in fact, it will appear at least on 3, possibly 4. It would appear on the resentments inventory, the fear inventory, and harm to others inventory. Because I see things this way, it can cause me to do harm to others because I don't consider them uh, in some way. Either I'm inferior or they're inferior. Somehow I'm not on equal terms with others. That's at least 3, and the fourth inventory is sexual relations. So it could affect that as well. Oftentimes does. But I mean, we have an opportunity to identify these things as affecting us, and it's in the inventorying process in step 4. Now, part of that process is okay, so what's my this? If the Israelites had the 12 steps that we're going through this process, may have spent 40 years in the wilderness after that particular experience, or not, we don't know, but could have, if they had something like this, said to themselves, okay, so I think they see me as grasshoppers. And that's a resentment. So, but what's part in that? My part in that is I didn't ask them. I didn't how they see me. I didn't ask them. I'm making up how they see me. That's part of step 4. And part of step 5 is the reality. with God, yourself, and another human being about what this is. And that's, we get to talk through it. Then in 6 and 7, we look at, how this not only has affected us, but what aspect of ourselves it could unearth is actually, like I say, the asset associated with what appears to be a liability. This, and again, it's in this method, this is spiritual Keno method. I take that from my partner, the psychologist. I appreciate the spiritual Keno.
Mm.
That's what 4, 5, 6, 7 are about for me. It
Spiritual
helps,
canopy.
yes, sir, helps me pry off the lid and peer into these aspects, these concepts, these ideas, these conclusions that I've drawn. Like I said, and the question you're asking, I'll suggest, is one at the level of postgraduate studies. I probably wouldn't have been able to do this on my first trip steps because it's fairly deep into the process. But then again, you've been doing this for a while too, sir, and I'm very respectful of that. But I'm suggesting that here, with this process of 4, 5, 6, 7, we can begin to establish what appears to me as an outsider as a boundary issue. I don't need to believe what I think others believe about
Say more.
me. And again, I have to make up some of this
Mhm.
from what you've shared with me and what we've talked about before. Uh, when and I've had similar issues myself, very different contexts certainly, but I think back to my own childhood, junior high, where I really less than compared to the wrestlers and football players. I was late developer. I didn't grow to my full height until I was 25 years old. So in high school, I was always younger, a little slower, definitely smaller. So I believed that others less of me because of my physical stature, and I had to do some, later on, like 30 years later, recognize, and that's the thing that colored. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud, always dangerous. But I'm reminded that I carried that attitude of inferiority into my work life later. Even though I grew to full height, which uh, 6'2", which is pretty tall. Certainly tall than any of my bosses. Uh, and and um, I had some physical jobs in between, so I I got pretty rich in my early 30s as well. So physically I no longer resembled the 12-year-old that I still felt like on the inside, and yet the belief uh, caused me to act in certain deferential and inferior ways to those I saw superior. It took me years to come out from under that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Uh, and 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 again, the steps can help me with that boundary definition because there's a boundary there. I can choose not to accept what others believe about me and choose to believe about myself that I believe to be real. That's a boundary issue. And and the step work can assist me with boundary issues to the extent that I identify them in my inventory process. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to stay there and dive. So, if you, as you say, use that spiritual can opener here for in terms of audience.
Yeah.
Um, so, what you just laid out, um, what is the connection between that and for you, Dr. JJ, um, sexual addiction, doing the work related to the steps, uh, around sexual addiction, but to get
Mm.
at that issue? How, I mean, how, is that you see, they don't seem to be connected. So but you've
Really?
connected them. But so
I
how,
do,
yeah, so
well, again, and ultimately the connection is through step 12, because having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we work to share this with other individuals and to practice these principles in our lives. Well, practicing these principles in our lives means that I can apply the steps to any problem in my life,
mm, mm,
any and every. And the extent to which I do, I have an opportunity to do with that personal issue what I've done with the personal issues directly related to my sex.
mm,
Okay?
mm,
That's how it relates ultimately, and that's why I say maybe this may your question may not come up in the first pass of the 12 steps, but when I can apply the steps to this issue and the other, here's the opportunity. Does
got it.
that
Yeah. No, no, that's one I wanted you to get that on the record, as you say, for the record. That's
Sure.
that's so you're taking the steps and applying. As you said, uh, may not be the first pass, may not be that, but this is applying this in other areas and working at totally unrelated to sexual addiction. I want to come over here and use this process to work on this issue.
one of the things that I've come to realize is that nothing's unrelated.
Mm, yeah.
Nothing's unrelated. The step 12 happens to spell it out because it's not clear, like I say, the first time through the steps. But in step 6 and 7, as we're going through the so-called character defects and flipping them and seeing what the acid is, those are, if you literature, if you read the Big Book of AA, or you read the 12 and 12, and then in the Green Book, you'll see that it acknowledges that we have to move past the specific addiction issue itself to deal with the larger issues in our life, relieve what I have called in past podcasts the psychic torment that drives the addiction. Okay. And that's the first part of this where we realize that it really does apply to other areas of our life. Step 12 is, like I say, for those of you who didn't get it, okay, apply it to the rest of your life.
Mhm.
That's much more specific.
Mhm. Staying there. Thank you, Doctor, for the clarifying that. Staying there again. Psychic torment. So psychic torment, and then going back in terms of your experience, uh, and and your, and uh, if I'm stating your what you described as some some sense of inferiority.
Mhm.
Um, I get. I'm with you. Working the steps.
Yeah.
Uh, off 12, applying to other areas. Uh, but with the psychic torment, to what extent, and I'm going now to our understanding around um, character development, not and not just character defect, but character development.
Mhm.
That 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 even with working the steps, given what has happened, um, we're not talking about uh, we're not talking about a character defect. We're talking about a character developed, and that there's a there's we're not just talking about working on something that I know, I think you see where I'm going. We're not talking about something that is going to get worked and massaged and go away. That
Sure. Yeah.
something has been produced that and it's amazing how in listening in these rooms to people talking about um, the voices in their heads
Mm,
and 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 not having been given tools, but talking about you know uh, like another character that's a part of them and doing this battle and the battle royale that's going
yeah,
on
indeed.
with this other part of me and again I've been we anyway you get so you got all you think you get where I'm
Sure.
going so let me get pause and let you respond to that.
Well, um,
I'm just the question.
the
My question is about working it. I got it working, applying it. But
okay.
but applying it not is applying it to think to work it to think I'm going to rid myself of it
Ah,
versus I'm applying it and I'm working it so that I can uh have peace with a part of who I am that
yeah, it's coming to terms. Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying the question. And I was getting the gist, but I needed the explicit question. So
yeah.
thank you, sir. But uh, yeah, this is yeah. There's something of a misdirection play. Now this is presentation of Dr. JJ. So I imply nothing in terms of Bill W., Dr. Bob, Pat C., or any of the sources, Joe McHugh, or anybody else. I have not seen this written anywhere. So mine is a flight of fantasy attributed simply to Dr. JJ and nobody else.
Okay, we
But
got you.
as I see it, the character defect conversation is something of this direction play.
Mm.
Okay, because because it certainly it's whatever has been identified in our step work in our fourth and fifth steps as an issue that needs to be addressed is it typically turns out to be an overused asset. We've done something over and over again because it has worked for us sometime in the past, and we've just so used it that it has become part of the problem. And so what we need to do is rediscover what the related set is. That's the flipping of the so-called character defect.
Mm.
Do you understand why I suggest the term defect is a misdirection on the
Yes.
part of
Yeah.
the authors?
Yeah.
Like I say, these are just my terms.
Yeah.
Um, I, they may have more elegant ways of putting it, but what happened is we come to realize that there is a there part of what looked to be a defect that really isn't. That is really an opportunity if we choose to uh, um, if we choose to effectively apply the asset. And what that means is come out of the stream that we've operated in and do it differently. But the fact of the matter is, since we already know how to use it in the extreme, we can begin with the help of others, such as our sponsor, to apply it differently in the future.
I wanna pick up next time, Dr. JJ, with here. It's good as we remember. So here's how I my spin on your spin.
Okay.
My spin on your spin. Um, the protagonist of today and tomorrow is the antagonist of yesterday telling a new story. Was that?
I said, "Amen, brother." That's it.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
okay, is that am I getting it?
Yes.
Do I got it?
That's
That's my
right.
spin on your spin.
And I'm with you. I'm totally with you. That's right. The antagonist of the past is the protagonist, the badass of the present and the future. How's that?
Yeah, telling a new story.
Telling a new story.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're gonna pick that up. Thank you, Dr. JJ. We'll pause it there. That way, we know we'll remember that.
Put the pin back in. We'll
Okay.
we'll throw the grenade next time.
Okay. All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good. Look,
Uh,
if I
you
can,
need a hey, Hunter. Do you need a plug?
yeah, I was gonna say if I can get in, Rector America,
Please.
please, if you would, if you like what we're doing here, if you're enjoying Dr. JJ and conversations with Hunter, please go over to movietheworld.us and check out the services and what we use, what we're offering over there to help to keep the lights on, pay the bills, and also follow in these rooms blog on over there at movietheworld.us and follow our podcasts and blogs on rectamerica.com. Thank you for the opportunity to put the plug in, Dr. JJ.
Certainly.
All right.
Anytime, Hunter. Well, thank you, sir. Always interesting, and we definitely have more to chew on next time. So look forward to our next engagement. So,
All right. Thank you, Dr. JJ.
thank you, folks. Dr. JJ out.
Amen, brother.